The next thing that we're going to talk about is emails that we get on a daily basis that promote the idea there's crypto adoption, blockchain adoption, cryptocurrency adoption, NFT adoption. And the one issue that we have with that specifically as investors is this is not even half of a statement, because if you're coming to us and asking for an investment in your company or project, you need to actually show us adoption by who, why, when, how, for what. And whenever you read a sentence, crypto adoption, that should be your question. If you're an investor in the space, if you're interested in making allocation in the space, you actually want to go down to brass tacks and figure out, okay, adoption by who, for what, and why, and when. And then you can find out the actual utility of a solution. While if someone tells you there's going to be a blockchain or cryptocurrency adoption, then he's not actually saying anything. Just like when people make a claim that you use XYZ for money, Ether is money, Bitcoin is BTC is money. That's not saying anything, because as I mentioned earlier, money is simply an agreement. Whatever you decide between two parties is money. But the default, more often than not, will be just your local unit of account you've been indoctrinated in. So let me give you one big picture overview that I find somewhat important to understand. So this is kind of the big buckets, how we facilitate commercial activity at scale. I'm going to move a little bit to the left side, I guess, so I'm not blocking anything. So before we invented digital technologies, so capital formation was done using corporations, we have physical retail banking, and the most prominent companies, the most valuable companies at the time that dealt with physical goods and or were phone companies, publications, Walmart, Comcast, and so forth. And then once we introduced internet protocols, we saw a new type of company emerge, and those are the most valuable companies today, oftentimes summarized as the FANGs, the Facebook, Amazons, Netflix, PayPals, and Googles. And all of these companies rely on one particular technology, which is databases. And as I mentioned earlier, blockchain-based solutions are the solution to the problem that is databases, and I will expand on that some more. So now we see new type of capital formation systems, such as Bitcoin. We see new types of systems that move bytes around. So we see companies or projects like Ethereum and the Graph and decentralized applications such as Uniswap and Aave, who are entirely different, and most importantly, from where I'm standing, do not use database solutions. And then in the cases where they do, they are not decentralized. They don't, in that aspect, fulfill the criteria of being blockchain based. And we'll break that down some more as well. So first popular topic of 2021, aside from NFTs, which we're going to get into, is the topic of decentralized finance. In December, I published an article on Forbes explaining that decentralized finance, that we kind of invented that term out of the necessity because fintech was previously applied to solutions that were actually window dressing solutions to legacy financial systems, meaning that decentralized finance is really the first fintech solution that we actually have seen. And the reason why I make this claim, again, remind you, we are technologies investors, and from our perspective, technology should be deflationary, whereas the quote-unquote fintech solutions of the past were actually extra extractive on top of the traditional financial system and added another extractive layer on top of that. So as far as I'm concerned, these are not fintech solutions, they're window dressing solutions. Not that there's something wrong with that, but the larger point there being is that decentralized finance solutions are the actual first fintech solution. And here we break down the current use cases. As I mentioned earlier, for us, it's all about establishing and identifying and measuring the actual use cases. And that's how the use cases look as of yesterday when I plugged in the data. from the chain. So the DeFi space, the decentralized finance space right now captures about $93 billion worth of value. And yet again, I'm stating this in US dollars because that's the unit of account that everybody on these systems seems to be using. And so mostly decentralized finance solutions currently are being used for lending, and they are specifically for lending over collateralized crypto assets. So usually you will commit either a stable coin or Ether or BTC and borrow another unit that you can then ultimately liquidate against fiat currencies to facilitate your daily life. And then the second largest bucket here is decentralized exchanges. And maybe before I move on to that, it's important to point out we started in the whole crypto asset lending space with centralized solutions. So we were an early contributor to the Celsius project. And as a form of comparison, Celsius right now, again, it's a CeFi solution, it's a centralized finance solution. There's a corporation behind that, but it just so happens to engage with cryptographic assets and lends against cryptographic assets, and currently has about 21 billion under assets under management, so about half of what the decentralized finance space is comprised of as of yesterday. But then you got other, obviously, centralized lending systems such as Nexo. And so combined centralized lending solutions are currently outweighing the decentralized lending space.